core values to valued culture. Here is your host, Will Scott, interviewing another CEO about leading culture in their company.
Hello listeners, and welcome to another Czars interview where we talk to CEOs that care about corporate culture. We call this series From Core Values to Valued Culture, and Sonny is CEO and Czar of Culture at Balani Custom Clothing. Hi Sonny.
Hi, how you doing? First off, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Will.
No, it's great. Yeah, people seem to like talking about culture at their company, so...
Well, it's certainly one of the more fun things to talk about of everything we do. So
that's what
I guess if it's working too, it's more fun.
Yeah, that's what I like to keep reminding people. In fact, I like to say, listen, there's a few things you can do in your company that don't cost that much in terms of capital investment, that are super rewarding and fun to do.
For sure.
Yeah. So before we talk about culture at Custom Balani Clothing, Sonny, tell us a little bit about your organization.
So my father actually started Balani Custom Clothiers in 1961, and it was always a small sole proprietorship. So I grew up around the business, I would say, but I was never involved. And candidly, I didn't really have an interest in joining the business. It was, small sole proprietorship. I didn't feel like there was that much to jump into and take over. And so I actually watched the movie Wall Street when I was really young, and I caught that bug of trading, and I used to read all the trading books and things like that. And so I went into finance, and I ended up going into banking and trading for several years, which was an awesome career. It was throughout my 20s. It was the late 90s, so it was a very fun time to be a trader. And then I ended up transitioning careers out of that business in 2002, and during that period, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and I was sitting waiting for a new opportunity, and I was like, all right, well, let me help my dad while I'm waiting. And so as I started to get a little bit older and realized maybe there is an opportunity to change this business and build it. Now, I'd say the one downside was I came out of trading, and so I had like zero tangible skill sets to running a business. Yeah. And so I had to learn everything from my dad, who was not he was more of a, let me show you how to do this one time, and then you're going to do it. And so that was challenging to learn the business. So I took my time learning the business. And what the business is, it's a custom clothing company where we take measurements of folks and we show them different fabrics, and then we build a product that's made to their specification in terms of custom suits, sport coats, slacks, the whole gamut of men's tailored wear. And so after I learned that process, I started to hire and started to build a team. And so that was very, very challenging to try and understand how to do that without that previous experience. But I will say I also joined Accelerator, which is an EO program, and I joined EO. And so these things really helped me understand how to build a business, but also understand more about culture and all the things that we're talking about today.
Yeah. And when you first started hiring those people, I mean, was corporate culture even in your dictionary? Did you have core values or anything like that?
So it's funny. I think core values and culture, at least at a small business level for where my perspective is, I wanted to hire people that I connected with and that I felt had similar values and similar aspirations to what I had. And so one of the first hires we had was I was on a business trip of all places in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands. And I was at the bar with a friend, and I noticed this bartender who was there, who's 6'8", had a very magnanimous presence to him, and he just commanded the room. And so I really liked him. And 6 months later, I was there on another business trip, and he happened to be there again, and my friend was not. So I got to talking to him. And so it's funny. I think he had such a unique personality. I couldn't let it go. And this is when we probably had 3 or 4 people on the team. I offered him a position with us, and I said, what are you doing? What's your story? And he told me he was a physics major in college, and he played semi-pro volleyball all around the world, and he just wanted to have different experiences. And he was such a unique, charismatic guy. Yeah. I said, I think you'd be perfect for what we do. First of all, you're 6'8", you've got a presence to you in terms of clothing. And so I had a few cocktails in me, and I'm sure he thought I was just crazy and talking nonsense. But I ended up saying, let me comp you a couple of shirts. I want you to experience our clothing. And so I literally took him into the kitchen, took his measurements on the back of a server tab, And, he was gracious. I took his measurements, and of course, I'm sure he thought he'd never hear from me. Lo and behold, I sent him a couple of shirts, and then he gives me a call and says, "Wow, you just changed my life. I'm 6'8". I've never had anything that has fit me before in my entire life, and I can't tell you how happy I am." And so this was a bold move on my part too. I said, "Why don't you come to Chicago and meet my team? I'll pick up the tab. I'll fly you down for the weekend." I told my wife, she thought I was totally crazy. She's like, "Wait, what were you having at this bar that you met this guy in St. Croix?" And so fast forward, he ended up joining our team, and he's been with me for 8 years now.
Seriously?
And he is one of our top salespeople in the entire country. And he's just bought a house. He's just been an amazing rock throughout. And so what I'd say is, I don't think I knew what culture was, but I knew what type of person and values and things like that were coming. Later on, I think they got defined as we started to build that team and bring people in that were similar to that. Then later on, we saw, there's common themes here that we can recognize.
Yeah. Boy, Sonny, I've known you quite a while, but I've never heard that story. That's an awesome story, and
thank you.
Helped kind of define your culture, and of course how you lead too. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
So when we talk about corporate culture, what does that mean for you? What do you think we're talking about in the context of Balani?
So I think it means that it defines how you're going to manage, how you're going to hire, how you're going to fire, how everybody's going to come into work that day, how they're going to approach each other, approach you, how I'm going to approach them. And every company does approach things very differently. I would say we're very collaborative, and I work on trying to keep it that way, especially because we're a sales team.
Yeah.
But I really think it's just how you come into work every day and how you approach problems or different challenges.
So it sounds like it's pretty at the core of everything for you. I mean, it's pretty, yeah?
I would say it very much is, and we do manage to it. And I think what ends up happening is the culture becomes stronger, or I'd say maybe the core values become stronger every time they become tested. And they certainly do become tested over time.
Yeah.
And every now and then you slip. Everybody does. You go backwards. You break a core value. You make an exception for an employee. And then it makes you either redefine the culture and the core values, or you got to go back and make it stronger again.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you initially actually come to sort of write down your core values? What was the process you used for that?
So, as I said, I think it's slowly evolved to where we kind of loosely understood what it was, what kind of person we were looking for. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, we did always have core values, but I'd say about 3 or 4 years ago, we revisited the entire process to redefine them. And I went through a scaling up exercise, which for those who are not familiar, it's a Vern Harnish book.
Yeah.
And the exercise was to pick one of the employees that exemplified what you felt like was on the team. And it wasn't just me. It was a few of our team members that voted and decided who really exemplified the core values of what we represented. And then we singled that individual out and kind of defined what made those characteristics and traits right for our fit. And then we built on those, wordsmith them in terms of making them stronger and better. Yeah. And the funny thing is, it's that same employee who we picked.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah. What's his name, by the way? The guy from LaCroix.
His name is Court.
Court. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what is one of your core values?
So one of our, I'll share this with you later too, but we're actually in the process of revisiting them right now to try and slim them down and make them more simple. But they are: win as a team, lose as a team, leverage unique personalities and backgrounds, seek results the right way, elevate those around you, challenges not problems, and make success a habit.
Nice. So you got some unique kind of language there that you're using.
Yeah.
What was the elevate one?
Elevate those around you.
Elevate those around you. So how do you make that happen, and how do you make that come alive?
So we have what we call a Balani Buddy program, which is a mentorship program where senior clothiers on the team have the ability to be able to help the other team members that are younger and newer on the team to be able to grow and develop. And so I'm always a big believer that you never really learn something until you have to teach it, because you have to figure out how to articulate it, how to explain it, and you have to reflect and think, like, you're not just doing it, you have to say, like, why does this work? Why do I do it this way? And there's a lot of learning that I think happens throughout that process. And so I think it very much benefits both the mentor and the mentee.
So that's super. So elevate those around you. You've got an absolute program that's really making that happen. Do you also think about, I mean, I'm wondering if you extend that through to your customers too, because when your customer comes in and they're about to walk out in some sharp suit, are you not also elevating them?
So with every core value I wrote and our core purpose and our mission, everything I put together, I wrote with the intention of it should translate to our business model, our clothiers, and our clients.
Yeah.
And so that is very, very, very much true. For instance, our core purpose is, and I'm going to make sure I get this right here, which is, or our vision here is to have the best custom clothing team on the planet. So when people think custom, they think Balani. And that really is, obviously what we do is a product-based business. However, our vision is really about the people, because at the end of the day, we're a very highly interactive business that we have to connect with the folks that are our clients. And so, we're trying to instill, as you said, confidence in our clients. But by doing that, also our clothiers instill confidence in themselves, because they get to help other people and be able to dress and look the part and feel great. Yeah,
that's awesome. So you're not just leading a company there at Balani, you really are leading a culture which extends beyond the company.
We are trying.
Yeah.
I always say we're trying. Yeah. One other one I'll jump in on that's one of my favorites that I think has resonated with folks throughout the years is challenges, not problems. And so I always talk about this on our opening training day, because we are in a custom clothing business where there's measurements, style, there are so many things that can go wrong. And then we have a type A driven client that is extremely demanding. Many of them are, hedge fund managers, they're lawyers, they're used to getting their way. And so part of this is having a mentality that challenges are going to happen. There are going to be mistakes. There's going to be delays. There's going to be situations, but it's all about how you handle them. And so if you wake up in the morning and say, oh my gosh, I checked my email and I have 4 problems, you come in very negative and not the best framework. However, if you come in and be like, okay, we have 4 challenges we got to solve today, and we come in as a collaborative team and try and help and leverage the experience of everybody on the team, because most likely someone's seen what you've had before happening, then it becomes a completely different experience, and you come in wanting to solve those problems and wanting to take care of those things and not putting them in the bottom of your desk and saying, I'll get to them later. It's like, let's go do them now. And so we really push for that to make sure that our clients get the benefit of it and that we just solve problems faster as a culture.
So I think you mentioned at the beginning there that when you get new employees, it's part of your training is training on the core values.
Correct. So typically that is my presentation on the kickoff day, which actually we're doing again next week. So we have typically a training program of about 5 new people starting at the same time. And so I do that kickoff speech. I tell a story of how we got started as a business, how we've grown. And then I do go into the core values, and I typically tell a story about each and every core value, about how I came to that core value and why it's important, to illustrate to them how important it is.
That's awesome. Stories are the best way, of course, to reinforce values and help people remember them. Tell us one of those stories for one of the values.
So I'll share one that is make success a habit, and this is a newer one that we had. And so the reason I added this is we had a clothier here in Chicago in our location here, which he was great. He always came in and he had great interactions with clients. People really liked him. He built strong relationships. But then sometimes he would totally check out. And he was just so inconsistent about it, where it was just a turn off, turn on type thing. And so I had continuously talked to him about it and said, you can't just turn it on and off. And so one time I sat down with him, and he had a pretty bad screw up, and he wasn't communicating with a client effectively. And so I said, what's the deal here? you've had all these great interactions. I know you're capable of doing all this. And so he ended up pushing back at me and saying, well, look at all the great Yelp reviews I have, which is what we really push for.
Yeah.
And look at all the great client interactions we have. And I said, that's great, but what about this particular situation? And he's like, well, I did all these things. He's like, do you expect me to do this every day? And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
And so it was a very surreal experience for me, but I realized on our core values, we didn't have anything about doing it consistently, which is the reason I decided to add that. And candidly, in the process, over time, we ended up terminating him as an employee because even though he was good, he just didn't do it every day, and I couldn't have inconsistent results with with our clients.
Yeah, so that's a story you tell that helps people illustrate, and then that tells them, oh, so I need to do this every day, consistently,
Correct.
Place values, and give every customer the same experience. Yeah.
And I would say that's one of those situations that was very hard because I liked him personally, and I think at times he performed very well at the position. But at the times he didn't, it was so bad that I was like, all right, well, this is just against what I believe, right? Personally.
Yeah.
Like, I believe you should come to work every day and perform, not when you feel like it.
Yeah. And of course, I'm sure the culture and the whole company kicked up a little notch when you made that decision, and people respect it and they see that you are leading with your values.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So you've trained them. Now they're on board. Other things that you do to keep the core values sort of alive and thriving in an everyday sense?
So we have a plaque that I put together on a acrylic type glass piece that's in every. So we're in 14 locations around the country. So we have that out. We have that at every location.
Congratulations, by the way. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a fun, long journey, but it's been awesome. And so we have that plaque out. It was funny. I remember I went to our Houston location, and this was always supposed to be like in the back office or in the kitchen. And when I went to our Houston location, I realized they actually had it out in the front of the showroom. And so I was about to put it away and be like, oh, this is supposed to be for the back office. And then I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're so proud of it. They put it out in the front. What would I be saying and sending a message to them if I pull it and put it in the back?
Yeah.
And so I left it out there, and lo and behold, they know it really well now because they see it on a daily basis, and even the clients see it, and so they know what the expectations are of our team because they put it out there, not me.
And what does that plaque say on it, and how do you award it?
So it's a plaque that has our core values, our mission, our vision. It talks about our process, which some of this is like competitive intelligence here, like the way we do things, which is why I didn't want to leave it out. But I also realize knowing the information and executing on it are completely different things. And so I'm not afraid to put it out there because I don't think most folks out there can execute on it the way we can. And it's our original ideas. And I think whenever you have your own original ideas, it's more ingrained within the team.
That's awesome, yeah. So when you're recruiting, it sounds like you're recruiting pretty fast. You got another 5 people starting next week.
Yeah.
Do you bring the core values into the interview process?
For sure. We very much hire by them and fire by them. We screen against individuals to make sure they're a fit. Mm-hmm. For instance, we have unique personalities and backgrounds, which is kind of a strange one for a core value. But in our business and in many sales businesses, the sales pitch tends to sometimes be very robotic. And so the reason I put that on there was because we do have a very diverse group of folks that's on the team that has great stories. And at the end of the day, part of sales, actually one of the biggest components of sales, is being able to connect with people. And so you can't connect with a robot who's doing a sales pitch.
Yeah.
You need to connect with a person first. And people want to hear those great stories about who you are as a person, why you got into this business, what your history was, and they connect on where you went to school, these little tidbits. And so while we make sure that every rep covers the same general topics in their presentation, we want to make sure that they're themselves and that they're human beings and people connect with other human beings. So that's what becomes really important for us on that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's different for you in your business. I mean, a lot of my clients are sort of B2B. and or on their internet base and somewhat removed, but
Yep.
you're actually touching your clients in a very personal way. And
For sure.
you need all of your employees to represent the culture right at the coalface there.
Yeah, we're a very relationship-based organization, and so you need to have that connectivity with the clients.
So do you think all your employees could name your core values and or name some portion of them off the top of their heads?
So I think it's funny. I reflected on this question. I reflect on it often, which is I think most people could name 4 out of 7.
Yeah.
And so what I needed to, there's 2 ways I could approach that. One would be I need to be a drill sergeant to make sure everybody understands that. I'm actually taking the other approach, which is I'm going to cut them down to 4.
Interesting.
Because I realize 7's a lot to try and make everybody remember. But if I pick the strongest 4, which we're in the process of doing that right now, is trimming it down to 4 very strong ones, I think everybody can remember 4.
It's funny you should say that, because that's exactly my experience, and that's what I encourage people to do who are starting out on this journey, is to have no more than 4.
Okay.
Now, if you want to go to 6 or whatever, okay, I'm not going to. But in my experience, absolutely, people can remember 4.
Yeah.
And one of the things I do, I'll stop people in the hallway and say, "Hey, can you just run through our core values for us?" And it's like they got 4 fingers, and when they get to the thumb, they can't. That's it's something there about that. And very often, I find you can rationalize the core values too, with the ones that are the most important. And sometimes, because we have. Sometimes you'll put descriptive behaviors under each core value. So you can have 4, but still sort of embellish a little bit.
And cover a few things.
Cover a few things there in terms of, what do we mean by, a certain value at our company?
I do love the story aspect of all of it, because I think that's what people tend to remember, is the story behind it and how it translated into a real world experience.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I think you sort of addressed this earlier on, Sonny, but, you have to manage growth, opening new stores, marketing, employees, customer relationships, profit, of course, top line. You also got to manage culture. I mean, where do you put culture in the list of priorities that you have to take care of on a daily basis?
So certainly each and every one of those aspects of the business is important to be able to manage, and I can't really let any single one of them slip, otherwise you're in trouble real fast. But I'd say one thing I really encourage when we do our opening training is I present the core values and I present who we are as an organization, but then I also put it upon the team to do it. I don't say that culture is going to start with us. I say it's going to start with you. And so what I encourage them to do their own things, because I feel like that's such an authentic, real experience. So, for instance, if we're going to do a charitable thing, I don't want to force it on the team. I don't want to come up with the idea. I let someone on the team pitch ideas about what they want to do, and then everybody on the team buys in, and then we all do that particular aspect of what it is. Or if someone wants to do, bring different food in every day and do like a cooking contest or something like that, I really try and encourage and support those initiatives of what the team wants to bring in, because I do think there's a certain level of authenticity, and I put it on them. I basically say, guys, culture doesn't start with us. It starts with you guys. You guys define the culture. So, you know who we are as a core team, but bring these things in terms of your personal experiences. And that's also that, leveraging unique personalities and backgrounds. I want that authenticity in terms of where they feel part of it. And I think it helps them feel more inclusive, and as you said, like it allows me to focus on other aspects of the business too that are important when I know that they're managing the cultural aspects, not just me.
Exactly. Yeah. Would you say the culture at Balani Custom Clothing is as good now as it's ever been?
Let me reflect on that for a moment.
Because it can go up and down a little bit depending on who's the employees and stuff.
Yeah, it does go up and down. I would say, especially as you're growing people fast, the culture can sometimes get away from you. And so I would say we're at a good point right now. But for instance, maybe 6-9 months ago, I don't think we were. And all it really takes is one or two employees that you've let slip.
Right.
And it sends the wrong message to everyone in the team. The two employees that I'm referring to right now are no longer with the company. And I can, as most CEOs or business folks would say, immediately after that happens, everybody gets stronger again.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's not a linear thing. It is an ebb and flow thing that whenever you have to make tough decisions and you test those core values and test them against the people and push it and make the tough call, that then it becomes stronger again every time.
Right. Yeah. And can you credit, do you think the company performs better? Can you say that, we sell more, for example, or we make more money when the culture is at its best?
I will make that assumption because I've never done anything else. However, I'll also say, to me, it's personal. One of the joys I have of being able to be a business owner and a CEO is I get to pick the people I want to work with. And I want to work with awesome, great people that share the same values and share the same type of fun working experience that I want. And because I have that, I get to have that privilege, and I want to be able to give it to our team. And I think when everyone, nowadays we spend so much of our time working, and so why not make it fun? Because I think then people have a place they want to come into. They have a place where they enjoy their coworkers' company, and they enjoy spending time with them. And then it doesn't make work. It makes it fun and a pleasurable experience. And I have to think at the end of the day that when you're engaged and you're having fun, that it's going to have an impact on profitability. And, to me, I'd say I don't even think I question it. I just think I don't need to test that theory.
Okay.
I just know it.
Okay, cool. So, by the way, having 14 locations, how do you manage, a consistent culture, I guess, across 14 different cultures in different cities?
So that's certainly been challenging. We have had situations where we've opened in a new location and tried to build that culture. It's much more challenging. Now what we've done is when we want to open a new city, we will take someone from an existing city to launch that new city. And that has been critical to being able to maintain that culture in the new city because it's the seedling has been planted and we can build around that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that makes total sense. And do you find people are up for that challenge? Yeah, I'll move. I'll champion the Balani brand in that next location.
They love it.
Do they?
They there's a line that people want to try and do that for us with. So yeah, they're always up for the challenge.
Yeah. Hey, what was it like before you owned your own company? Like when you were back in the trading business, what was culture like there?
So I was on an equity market making desk. I was a NASDAQ trader. So culture was there was a very strong culture there. It was a culture of get it done at all costs. And don't take anything personally while we're in the middle of a transaction. By that, there could be some heated exchange, let's call it, with a lot of colorful language during the middle of a transaction. And as soon as the bell rang and the day closed, we all went out for beers. And everybody was totally cool. No one took anything personally. It was fairly intoxicating culture, actually, because to see that was like, how do you not take stuff personally, but you learn how to do it real fast, which is you're just representing clients and a lot of money in a very time-sensitive situation. So tensions get very, very, very high, and then they de-escalate very, very, very fast.
Yeah, interesting.
Over drinks.
So very different from the culture you're building now.
Very different, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say one thing that I think I was able to take away from that experience too was because I grew up in the business, but I didn't really focus on it, and then I went into trading, investment banking, and that whole world. I think I also recognized what my client wanted to see as an experience. And so that was one of the main takeaways that I was able to have was I for a long time I was my client, right? I was the perfect demographic of who I would be pursuing later on in this business. And so I tried to create an experience and a team that would cater to them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Sonny, we're almost at the end of our time here, and I really appreciate your time this morning. Before we go, any final thoughts for our listeners in terms of advice?
So I'd say the one thing is, I think culture and core values are not just a company thing. I think they are a very personal thing that begin with the CEO. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that has to be meaningful to you. And so what I mean by that is you can't take someone else's core values and make them your own. I don't think that really ever works. I think you have to figure out who you are as a person and then resonate down, because then there's that level of authenticity that is so true. And when anyone ever sees the core values, it's not a coincidence. I think they think of me in terms of there's a personification of that, which I think makes it more powerful and more meaningful. I'm the one who's telling the stories and the one who's living it, and so it has to be personal to the CEO too.
Absolutely, yeah. You can't dream them up aspirationally. They have to be discerned from who you are and who the company is. And as you said, you went through a process where you also included Court, one of your key employees. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So thanks for taking us through the story of the development of culture at Balani Custom Clothing. And would you say you're the biggest culture czar over there? Are you leading that culture and the biggest champion?
I would say I for sure I am. We're in the process of building a leadership team right now, which is coming together quite nicely. So I'm trying to, as we grow and expand, not be the only one, because I do think that the leadership team also has to exemplify each and every core value, and they are held to a higher standard on that side because everybody looks to them similar to how they look to me. And so over time, as we expand, and as we were talking about earlier with how do you maintain that culture as you grow and build, I think having the leadership team and the level below that and the level below that continue to maintain that culture to the highest degree is where all that pressure is not just on me, but it gets spread around in a good way to everybody else.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll finish on that note. And congratulations, Sonny, on your growth and what you've done with the company. And, of course, for sharing your story about your culture there today. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Will. Always a pleasure. I appreciate being here.
Well, thank you.
Great. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at culturezars.com, and we'll see you next time.